I never thought one moment could change everything, but that crash did. The sound of twisting metal, the blur of flashing lights, and then, darkness. When I woke up, the hospital bed was cold and sterile, but what hit me harder than any painkillers was the silence from my family. My parents and brother had left. Not to another room, not just a hospital cafeteria, they left the country. Italy. Rome, to be exact. The voicemail still haunts me, "We're off to Rome, don't bother calling us." For words that shattered the fragile bridge of trust one thought we had. I stared at my phone for hours, scrolling over the message again and again, trying to understand why they abandoned me when I needed them the most. Days turned into a week. No visits, no texts, nothing. The nurses were kind, but the loneliness felt like a weight pressing down on my chest. As I lay there, powerless and broken, I realized something cold: they didn't care. And that realization sparked a fire I didn't know I had. I started making calls, first to the bank, then to the airline. I blocked their access to my accounts. I canceled their return tickets. Every dollar I had been sending home was cut off. If they thought they could leave me to rot in that hospital bed, they were about to learn that I wasn't helpless. The days after I blocked their bank accounts felt like reclaiming pieces of myself one by one. At first, it was a small victory, a symbolic act of defiance against their abandonment. But it quickly spiraled into a reckoning. When my parents realized their money was gone, the calls started. At first, I ignored them. Then I let the voicemails pile up, angry, confused, desperate voices demanding explanations, apologies, promises. But I wasn't ready to talk. How could I? After everything, their silence was a betrayal so deep it felt like drowning in a sea of disbelief and rage. My brother's name came up in every call, the golden child who got to skip out and leave me behind. I could hear the hurt in their voices when they said, "You're tearing the family apart." Maybe I was. But I was also breaking free. Friends from the hospital became my lifeline. Nurses who checked on me with more care than my own blood, a physical therapist who stayed late just to listen. It was in those moments, feeling their genuine kindness, that I understood what family could mean and what mine had chosen not to be. With the money I still had, I paid for therapy sessions, each one peeling back layers of pain, anger, and confusion. I learned to speak the words I'd been swallowing: abandoned, betrayed, erased. I wrote letters I never sent. I called my parents only once more, to tell them I wasn't the same person they left behind. I was stronger, but I was also done. The news of what I'd done spread fast. Relatives took sides. Social media exploded with whispered accusations and public debates about loyalty and obligation. But none of that mattered to me. What mattered was reclaiming my story, my dignity. And through it all, I kept asking myself, why would they leave me in a hospital bed to fly halfway across the world? The answer was as complicated as it was painful, wrapped up in years of silent resentments and hidden resentments. But now, I was ready to face those truths, whatever they cost. The silence between my parents and me stretched longer than I ever imagined possible. The voicemail saying, "We're off to Rome, don't bother calling us," played over and over in my head, like a cruel echo that refused to fade. But beneath the bitterness, a gnawing need for answers took root. Why did they choose to abandon me? What had I done to deserve being left in a hospital bed while they packed their bags and boarded a plane? Determined to uncover the truth, I started piecing together fragments of conversations I had overheard before the crash, texts I found hidden on old phones, and vague hints dropped by family friends who didn't know how much I already suspected. There were cracks everywhere, tensions I'd never fully understood, financial troubles, hushed arguments behind closed doors. But the most devastating revelation was yet to come. One afternoon, while scrolling through my email, I found a message from a lawyer, sent to my parents but accidentally copied to me. It was a notice about debts they'd hidden from the family, mortgages they couldn't pay, and creditors knocking louder than ever. The crash had been the tipping point, the breaking of a fragile facade. My parents had fled not just from me, but from the avalanche of problems waiting for them back home. The weight of their desperation hit me harder than the physical pain from the accident. They weren't just careless or cruel. They were drowning, and instead of pulling me up, they had abandoned me to sink alone. It was a betrayal wrapped in fear and shame. Yet, despite everything, a part of me still craved some semblance of connection. I started writing emails, tentative messages trying to reach through the silence. I shared small updates, how I was healing, the therapy, my plans for the future. Each message sent felt like a test, a fragile bridge thrown across a widening chasm. Days passed. Weeks. The silence remained. No replies, no acknowledgements, just an empty inbox that echoed the distance growing between us. But in the quiet moments, I realized something else. I was no longer waiting for them to choose me. I was choosing myself. As the weeks dragged on, I buried myself deeper into recovery and rebuilding my life from the ruins my parents left behind. But just when I thought I was gaining some control, the past decided to claw its way back with a vengeance. One evening, a strange call came through on my phone. The number was unknown, and the voice on the other end was hesitant, almost scared. It was a distant cousin I barely remembered, someone who'd been out of touch for years. But what she told me next shook me to my core. "They're not just in Italy," she whispered. "They've been hiding something here, too, something you need to know." My heart pounded as she went on, describing secret meetings, sudden trips, and hushed phone calls I'd never been told about. My parents had been living a double life. While they were gallivanting through Rome with my brother, they were also tied up in something darker back home. Money disappearing from accounts, lies to family friends, even strange visitors late at night. But the real shocker? My brother, he wasn't as innocent as I'd always thought. The cousin hinted at his involvement in some shady deals, the kind that could ruin all of us if they ever came to light. Suddenly, the person I thought I could count on the most was wrapped up in a web I barely understood. Determined to uncover the truth, I started digging. I hacked into old emails, pieced together bank statements, and even followed shadows in the form of whispered rumors online. What I found was like a puzzle with missing pieces, and some of those pieces were dangerous to touch. One night, I received a text message from an unknown number: "Stop digging, or you'll regret it." Fear crawled under my skin, but anger flared brighter. I wasn't about to let threats scare me into silence. With each revelation, my world grew more complicated. My parents weren't just neglectful, they were running from something sinister, and my brother? He might have been complicit. I realized I was alone in this fight. No family to lean on, no safe haven in the people I once trusted. But also, no more lies. I started to wonder if the crash was truly an accident. Or if it was a catalyst, a violent shove that pushed me out of their carefully constructed illusion. And somewhere in the middle of all this chaos, a new question gnawed at me: was I ready to face what the truth might demand? To confront not just their betrayal, but my own limits? Days passed with a heavy weight pressing on my chest. The threats hadn't stopped, if anything, they grew more sinister. I found mysterious notes slipped under my door, anonymous texts dripping with warnings, and once, a car parked suspiciously outside my apartment all night. But no matter how much I feared, I refused to back down. This was my life, and if they wanted me silent, they'd have to break me first. I started reaching out to people from my parents' circle, old friends, business associates, anyone who might know what was really going on. Most shut me out or hung up the moment I asked about Italy or my brother. But one name kept coming up: a man called Marco. Marco was a shadowy figure tied to my family's finances, a fixer, someone who dealt with problems no one wanted to be seen solving. According to whispers, he had a reputation that mixed respect and fear in equal parts. I found an address linked to him in a rundown part of town, the kind of place where deals happened behind closed doors and the light rarely reached. I debated for hours, but the need to know outweighed my fears. I showed up unannounced, heart pounding, palms sweaty. The place was a dim bar, filled with smoke and murmurs. Marco wasn't there, but his presence felt like a shadow lurking just beyond the neon glow. Just as I was about to leave, a voice called out, "You shouldn't be here." I turned, and there he was, tall, cold-eyed, with a smirk that didn't reach his face. "I know what you want," Marco said, his voice low. "But some truths come with a price." I told him about the crash, the voicemail, my parents' disappearance, and the strange activities I'd uncovered. He listened without blinking. Then he leaned closer and whispered something that stopped my breath. Your brother's debts aren't just financial. He owes people who don't forgive mistakes. And your parents? They ran because the net is closing. The room spun. This was no longer just family drama, it was a game with stakes too high to ignore. Marco's smirk turned into a warning. If you want out, you'll walk away now. If not, well, it's already too late. I clenched my fists, voice shaking but defiant. I'm not walking away. He chuckled darkly. Then welcome to the real family business. That night, I realized the crash wasn't an accident. It was a trigger pulling me into a world I never wanted to enter. And the deeper I dug, the darker the shadows grew. But there was no turning back. After my tense encounter with Marco, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was walking on a tightrope stretched over a pit of vipers. Every step could trigger a strike. I returned to my apartment with a renewed sense of urgency. I needed answers, and I needed allies. I started digging deeper into my brother's life. What I found was a tangled web of lies, loans, and dangerous promises. He'd been involved with people who dealt in shadows, loan sharks, crooked businessmen, maybe even worse. His disappearance was no coincidence, it was a calculated escape or a forced vanishing act. Then, one evening, my phone rang. No caller ID. Stop. Now. Or you'll be next, a voice hissed, cold and unrelenting. I didn't answer. Instead, I texted back, I'm not scared. Tell me what you want. The reply came almost immediately, your parents took what wasn't theirs. Your brother's in deep. If you want your family whole, meet me at the old pier at midnight. Against my better judgment, I went. The pier was cold and misty, the only sound was the lapping of water against rotting wood. A figure emerged from the shadows, Marco. He handed me an envelope thick with documents and photos. This is everything, he said. Your parents weren't just running away, they were running from the law, from debts, from betrayal. They used you as a shield, and now the fallout is on your doorstep. I flipped through the papers, fraudulent accounts, hidden assets, threats from criminal syndicates. My family's empire was a house of cards built on deceit. You can walk away, Marco said quietly. Or you can fight to rebuild what's left. I felt something break inside me, not hope, exactly, but resolve. Whatever happened next, I wasn't going to be a ghost in their story anymore. In the weeks that followed, I cut every last tie with my parents. I blocked their numbers, froze their accounts, and ensured no dollar passed through me to their lies. I hired a lawyer and reported what I found to the authorities. It was messy, painful, and terrifying. But as the dust settled, something unexpected happened. I started building my own life from the wreckage. I reconnected with old friends, found new work, and slowly stitched together a version of family that didn't hurt me. One day, I got a letter, not from my parents, but from my brother. He'd been in hiding, scared but alive. He apologized, explained, and asked for a chance to start over. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And for the first time in years, I felt something I hadn't allowed myself to feel before, peace. My family had tried to erase me. Instead, I erased their hold on me. I was no longer their prisoner. I was free. Hey guys. I hope you enjoyed the story. Please, let me know your opinions and subscribe for more.